All right. Okay, Boker Tov, everyone. We learned today L'ilui Nishmat Avigdor Chai Avraham ben Rachalei Omer Tzvi Neshama Shnei Van Aliyah. As we are also approaching the week in which next week with Yom HaZikaron, also the other nishamot of those who have fallen in battle, all those who were murdered, etc. Everyone for whom Yom HaZikaron is significant and meaningful because they themselves have lost someone within their family should have nechama Hashem and from Am Yisrael. I want to go back to a Mishnah that we did a few weeks ago, because this past Shabbat, I took a bunch of the Parsha sheets from the Shul, and I read something from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha, which blew my mind about a Mishnah we learned. And I have to share it with you. Matter of fact, I pulled it aside. I even took it. I even marked it up. I said, I use it on this morning. So I'm going to put the Mishnah on the screen. We're going back. Well, it helps if I do a share screen and not be the only one to see it. Just a second. We're going to go back to the first chapter and Mishnah 15. Okay, it's chapter 1, Mishnah 15. You can use your own book. I'll put it out on the screen because I'm using today online. I'm going to I'll put up also the other things we're going to learn today. So there's two parts. There are two Mishnayot, one after the other. I'm just going to read it, remind you what it means, and then I'll mention the question and the amazing, brilliant answer of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Hillel used to say, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? And when I'm only for myself, ma'ani, what am I? If not now, when? Next Mishnah. Shammai Omer. Asay Toratcha Keva. Make sure that you set times for Torah. That's one of the many meetings we talked about. And Mor Me'at V'aseh Harbe. Say little, but do a lot. And then in the red, which is the focus of what I want to talk about, always greet somebody cheerfully, with a smile. The fancy word is a good countenance. And when we learned this Mishnah, we basically said, like, give me a break. Shammai, of all people, who said, treat people nicely, be nice to people. He's the man that said that we had these three stories. We read only one of them, three stories that had to do with a person who non-Jew who wanted to be converted on Erev Shabbat, and he pushed him aside. He was known to be very punctilious and very exacting and very demanding individual, not the happiest character on the earth. So what does it mean in the Mishnah? That he's the one that said this. Listen to this amazing answer from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he bases his answer on the way the Mishnah is edited. And I mean all the Mishnah. Everywhere in Mishnah that there's a Hillel and Shammai controversy. Remember, the Mishnah was edited by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi made a decision. So every time Shammai and Hillel had a disagreement, Shammai is mentioned first, and Hillel is mentioned second. Why? The character trait of Hillel was to be a vatran. He always wanted, no, you go first. And as a result of that, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi organized the Mishnah that every time Shammai came first, and then after that, Hillel came. What happened here? Hillel is coming first, and then Shammai. Why would he? Well, Rebbe asked, why did he change the order? Because normally you would do 99.9% of the time Shammai then Hillel. Only this time it's Hillel then Shammai. He says because in the latter part of his life, Shammai agreed with Hillel, changed his tactics, and became a different person. He did a form of tshuva. Not that, God forbid, he was sinning, but the way how he reacted to people, how he dealt with people, his bedside manner, went through a metamorphosis. And as a result, according to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi puts the Mishnah in this order to say that Shammai subjugated himself to Hillel. He agreed with Hillel by the latter part of his life and became a different person. I just thought that was absolutely mind-blowing. I want to just read to you. It says here, he says like this, Ki Shammai b'sof yamav, that Shammai at the end of his days, Amar et ma she'amar bi'kvot Hillel. The statement that he made, the you should greet everyone with a smile, with a good look. He's saying it as a result of what he learned from Hillel. When he heard and we saw the results of the positive results that came about of Hillel's approach of happiness and chesed, Savar Afhu, he also thought that the way to peace is better, it brings to a better resolution. So I think that was just absolutely fantastic. That you would think that we would catch that if you've learned a lot of Mishnah or Mishnah Gemara, you know that it always says Shammai, Obed Shammai, blah blah blah. Then it says Hillel, and this time Hillel, and then Shammai. So what a great catch! And that's why Lubavitch Rabbi Zeichat Tzadik V'Kodesh Livracha was an unbelievable tzaddik gadol b'Yisrael. Okay, and if you don't share my same enthusiasm and excitement, that's not my problem. I just thought it was great. Okay, let's move on. We were last week discussing this Mishnah. This is back now in Mishnah Dalet, fourth Mishnah in chapter 2. And we already we've talked about a lot of this first part. Make his will your will, so that what you want, Hashem will put in line with that, and will also want to do your will. Then we said, when you subjugate yourself, which was the mitzvot lo ta'aseh, the thou shalt nots, and you do that, you subjugate yourself, and you don't do things that you shouldn't, then what happens is, what will be the result? Is that other people will then subjugate themselves to your will. That doesn't mean that that Joe Schmo says something, and then because he's mevatel ratzon Hashem, and all of a sudden everyone's going to bow down to him. That's not what it means. But the result would be potentially that when you're in a disagreement about something, or a difference of opinion about something, that the other person will tend to see your side first, will accept it, and will want to do that. That, says the Mishnah, would be a potential direct result of your being mevatel, you're subjugating your ratzon to Hashem by not doing Avot. So we're not going to discuss, I'm going to just mention it because you can think about it. There's another Mishnah we've learned that in the beginning of early in the first chapter, it says you should not be like an Eved, like a servant who serves his master, kedei lekabel paras, in order to get a reward. Rather, you should just do it for the sake of your master. This sounds like you're doing it because you're going to get something out of it. So I'm leaving that out there. I may or may not discuss it because it's going to come up again a couple more times. But right now, I'm mentioning it just to be aware of it. So I want to talk about for a couple. Let me try that again. I want to talk about. I hope I make it through this whole class. I want to talk about this idea. What does it mean? What does it mean that others should? Literally means to remove, to mevatel their ratzon, their desire to whatever your desires are. Parenthetic. I've been involved, thank God, with many families who got married. And most of the time, Baruch Hashem, the relationships between the families, not Matan and Kala, but the families was amicable. Fortunately, because we're humans, just because a guy and a girl love each other doesn't mean the families are going to love each other. So sometimes it gets a little hairy. Where sometimes it gets to be a little exaggerated, though, is when it comes to customs. I'm mentioning this for two reasons. One, because it sort of fits with this Mishnah, and two, because it's going to fit in with the next Mishnah, or the second half of the current one, depending on your version you have in your book. So it comes to customs. I'm not even talking Sfaradi Ashkenazi. Let's talk two Sfaradim, two Ashkenazim family getting married. But within the family, there are different customs. Let's say that there are families whose custom is they walk down the aisle with candles and to what's called in Hebrew, Knisa Merikait. They march, they walk with candles, no dancing, just walking with music. And the other family is the extreme opposite, no candles. It's the dancing and the jumping and there's no right or wrong. There's no, you have to do it this way or you have to do it that way, unless you're within a certain community, and that is the custom of the entire community, which we're going to talk about soon, a little later. So what happens is sometimes there's a conflict in these customs. And the best way to resolve something like that is to have the approach that I've heard from many, many stories, not personally, from many Gedolei Yisrael, that when they were marrying off their children, that these big rabbis, when they were faced with differences of especially talking about two Hasidic dynasties sometimes combining, was the approach as follows. My custom, my minhag, is whatever you're doing, whatever your custom is now. Meaning that a way to achieve shalom is to batel v'tzoncha to the acher. So say, look, it doesn't cost me anything to be a good guy. Is it the family custom? Yes. Am I going to lose sleep over it? No. It's a good approach. So what this is saying here is that this Mishnah, in one perspective, is the reward of overcoming your Yetzer Hara. Remember, what does it mean, batel v'tzoncha? You should be mavatel your ratzon, your will. It means to not do something because Hashem said to not do it. That the reward of doing that is that you want to submit to the will of Hashem and not to your Yetzer Hara. And the result is that when you're in a controversy with another person, again, the simplest meaning here is that when you're in a controversy with another person, that they will see your side, assuming it's proper, and will submit to that opinion. And you'll be zoche to help from Shamayim, from Hashem, for that to occur. Now, does that mean if you're going to get into an argument with somebody, you can say to yourself, oh, that's right, I did nothing wrong today. I didn't speak Lashon Hara. I kept Shabbat right. I didn't mess up anything. I didn't say anything abusive to anybody. Now God owes me one. So when I'm in this controversy, this other guy's gonna subjugate himself to my will. He'll submit to my will. It doesn't work that way. Because when you do it specifically for that, it's not going to help you. Okay, so that partially answers our original question. Because you don't want to do it because of. What it's saying here is that you will be zochet to some help from Shemayim if you do the right thing in the way you relate to Hashem. But wait a second. That leads to a potential problem. Many years ago, 15, 25, at least 30 years ago, I took a one-day course in negotiations in Chicago with a man named Herb Cohn, who wrote a book called You Can Negotiate Anything. It's a fabulous book. If you don't own it, buy it, get it. It's a great book because if you don't realize it, you don't think negotiations isn't just about business. You negotiate every single day, sometimes with yourself, with your spouse, your children, your coworkers, people in shul, people on the bus. There's always negotiations going on. It's a great book. So one of the tactics, and I have used this in negotiations, one of the tactics when you're going through a negotiation about something is to be silent because people hate silence. So let's say, for example, I want to buy your car and you want to sell it for 1,000 shekel and I want to buy it for 500 shekel. And we're trying to meet somewhere in the middle. And you say, okay, I'll go down to 900 and I just sit. People hate silence. They feel they need to fill that void. So they say, okay, fine. Not 700, not 900. Let's go down to 800. You didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. And I stay silent. Okay, fine. So people need to fill that void. So I raised my hand and I said, Mr. Cohn, what happens if two people took your course and they both are silent? He says that you're going to sit there and just look at each other for hours on end. So everyone laughed. It was funny. But the question comes up here. Let's say you're in a negotiation, not negotiation. You're in a disagreement. You're having a difference of opinion with somebody else. And you're mevatel ratzon Hashem. You're good at not doing Avot. And he's mevatel ratzon Hashem. It's a zero-sum game. You both deserve, in quotes, the other to submit to the other's will. That's why some others describe the meaning here of acherim, the others who are going to submit to your will, is something else. You say differently. You say means like this. The acherim refers to gormim shliyim, meaning the negative causes or negative, good word in English for gormim. You talk about a gorem from a business, from a city, authority is not even the right word, but negative influences, that's maybe a good word. Negative influences, such as the Yetzer Hara, such as outside influences that might sway you, such as peer pressure. No, it's not just, it doesn't mean, according to this opinion, that it's one for one, that you're with somebody about a disagreement, and therefore because you're mivatel your ratzon, therefore he's going to mivatel his ratzon to you. Rather, it's a more general idea that when you start to overcome the Yetzer Hara, at some point the Yetzer Hara is going to be subjugated to you, and you're going to take control. Let's take the extreme. The extreme is a drug addiction. Someone who's addicted to drugs has lost their free will. It's not a matter that they make a conscious choice. Their brain is already now changed. Their brain has changed and has now caused certain things, certain synapses to fire in their brain, other things physiologically that happen that make them need that drug. It's no longer a choice. By the way, they've lost their bechira chopshit on that. They've lost their free choice. They've given it away. Well, on that doesn't mean life, just on that issue. On the other hand, a person who's not addicted to drugs, who does not know any desire for drugs, may one day be sitting with somebody and say, who's about to use, say, maybe I'll try that. Now, what's the difference between those two people, the addict and the person who doesn't use at all? The addict, it's not even their Yetzer Hara, it's just that they've become this person. They need the help to be cured, to get into a program, to recover. The other person isn't fighting a demon. They're fighting something else. They're fighting this like maybe just curiosity. Those are two extremes. But most of us are somewhere in between that. Somewhere where like we want to do something, but no, I've never had a desire in Shabbat to take a pen and write. Okay? But there are things in my life I say, I really would like to do it, but what can I do? I can't because Hashem said no. Okay? So the more we do that, and I'll show you this from the Rambam in a minute, the more we do that, we say, I'm not doing it because Hashem said I shouldn't do it. And by the way, if we make a conscious effort to do that, not just like, it's usher, prohibited, but because Hashem said not to, it has a grander effect on the Yetzer Hara's attack to you, on peer pressure and other things. That's the Mishnah, according to some opinions. What do I mean by what did I say about the Rambam? The Rambam says a person should not say, eat efshi. I don't want to eat treif. I don't want to eat chazer. Why not? He said, what you should say is efshi ve'efshi. I really do want it. And the only reason I'm not doing it is because Hashem said I can't. It's a very big difference between saying it's asur to me, it's prohibited to me, versus I'm not doing it because of Hashem. What's the difference? You don't stick your hand in fire because you don't want to get burned. It's not because you respect the fire. I mean, respect that in quotes. It's not you don't have a respect for the fire. Oh, thank you, fire. I appreciate you, fire. You don't stick your hand because you don't want to get burned. So some people, the approach to mitzvah or to Aveirah is that I don't want to get burned. Not because they want to do the will of Hashem. By the way, most people are like that you just don't want to do the Aveirah. But when you take it to the next level, and that's what this is, Batel ritzoncha ritzono, subjugate your will to his, is when you say, I really do want to stick my hand in the fire, in quotes. I really do want to eat that. For me, it's always been the same example. I'm sure other cities had it. I grew up in Chicago, as you know, and there was one restaurant, Arby's. They had a big sign, had a big, thick corned beef sandwich. And when you walk by there, the scent was heaven. Heaven. And man, did I want, never even for a millisecond think to go and buy it, God forbid. But the response shouldn't be at that moment, it's trade. That's why I can't have it. It's because I really do want it. I absolutely love to be able to go there and eat it. But I can't because Hashem said I can't. It's a very different level. Okay. Now, I want to read something to you. It's a story. I'm not going to put it on the screen. It's short. It is from, where is it from? The Zohar. It's translated into Hebrew. I'll read it. Read it and translate it into English. And it's going to sound like, you can say to yourselves, as I'm reading, like, what? That's insane. So wait to the end of the story, and I'll explain. Now, we're in the middle of Spirat HaOmer. Today is the 16th day of the Omer. And we know that on the 33rd day of the Omer, Lag BaOmer, there's a custom to, that's what's called the Hilulah, or the yahrzeit of the Rashbi, Rab Shimon Bar Yochai, or Hashem that canceled the event in Meron this year. And I say that not because of the war, but I think it's for various reasons. I'm very against it in the first place. So we're quoting the Rashbi or Rav Shimon Bar Yochai in the story, or a story about him, right around his yard side. The story is as follows: He was walking on the street, walking on the way. Suddenly, he saw this great darkness descend in the world. Amar libno Rabbi Elazar. He said to his son Rabbi Elazar, let's go see what God's looking to do in this world. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean a physical darkness. He saw a spiritual darkness, and he was on this level that he understood that something's not right. He says, let's figure out what's going on. They walked and they bumped into, I hate when this happens, he bumped into an angel. I hate when that happens. And 30 flames of fire were coming out of the mouth of this angel. Amarlo Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Shimon, that's the Rabbi Shimon said to him, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, what are you going to do? Amar Malach, so the angel replied, I'm on the way to destroy the world. Why? Because there are no 30 tzaddikim in this world, in this generation. Now put aside for a minute that the tradition is 36 tzaddikim, but okay. Amarlo Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said to the angel, I request of you, go back to God and tell him, Bar Yochai yesh ba'olam. I'm here. Shimon Bar Yochai, I'm here in this world. Meaning, I am worthy enough of like these 30 tzaddikim. How can he say that? Again, hold on to that thought. Halacha malach v'amar lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Malach went and stood before God and said, Galui v'yadua lefanecha ma shamar li Reb Shimon. You already know, God, what Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said to me. So God says to him, tough luck, Charlie. Lech v'achavev et haolam. Go and destroy the world. V'al tishma li divrei Bar Yochai. And don't listen to Bar Yochai. Halacha malach v'achviv et haolam. So the malach went to destroy the world. Kishabah, as he came there, Ra'aj Rashbi et malach. Once again, Rashbi, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, saw the angel. Amar lo malach, and he said back to the angel, Im ein atam mistalek mikan. If you do not leave here, meaning if you proceed with what you're trying to do, Gozreni alecha, I make a gzera. I decree on you, shelo ta'aleh od hashamayma. You're not going back to heaven. You're done. Your job as an angel is done. Now, go back to this heaven and say before God, sounds like Abraham. Says if they're not 30 tzaddikim, then let the world stand with 20. If it's not 20, let the world stand on 10. Or even just for one person, that's me. That's a bat kol ve'amra. A heavenly voice came out and said, Ashrech Reb Shimon, happy are you, or Reb Shimon, Shakadosh Baruch Hu gozer gzera, that God makes a decree, and you're able to wipe it off. But what's going on? First of all, how in the world does Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, theoretically, not for 100%, but theoretically, the author of the Zohar, say something like that about himself? I mean, that's the ultimate statement of Avot, of pride. And for those of you who remember learning in Siyat and Sharim, we spent quite a bit of time talking about the topic of pride, not proud, but pride. It's known also as Gaiva. That's first of all. And second of all, how does that connect to our mission? Reb Shimon Bar Yochai potentially could have been probably the quintessential individual that subjugated himself to God. Really, everything about him was God. The famous stories where he was with his son in the cave for many years, and all they ate was carob, much like Eliyahu Navi. And he came out, he saw a person working instead of serving Hashem in the Torah. He looks at him, and the guy turns into a pile of bones, all these stories. And Hashem tells him, go back in the cave. You have to understand that there's Torah and Avodah in this world. It's the original Bnei Akiva snish. But what happens as a result? The beginning of the Mishne tells us, if you make your will, if you make Hashem's will your will, he will make your will his. And that's what happens. The story shows us, we're going to come back to the Ga'ava part about the pride in a minute, but it shows us that when you subjugate yourself to Hashem's will, you make Hashem's will your will. Hashem is willing, quotes, to what you desire to make it his desire. That's what the story tells us. But that, of course, begs the question of how is it that he could say such a statement? So I'm going to share with you. We go on the screen here. Second screen share. I'll make this big. See if we can see it. Okay. I'm going to start on the left-hand side, then I'll move to the right-hand side. This is the end of the Gemara Sota. Years and years ago, I've had the opportunity to make a siyum on Sota multiple times. And every time I came to this end of Sota, it bothered me. And so I came up personally with what I thought was a good idea. I said it in public, and people seem to think it makes sense. I haven't seen it anywhere yet, but I have a different answer I'm going to share. It says in the Gemara, the end of Sota, Mishne, Rabbi, when Rabbi Yehuda Nasi died, Batla Anava, Virat. The concept of humility and what says here in English, fear of sin, died. It went away. It stopped. There was no more. There was nobody else who had that level in life. Marle Rav Yosef Latana. So Rav Yosef said back to the Tana who said this, Latitne Anava. Don't say, oh, Anava is no longer around, that humility is gone. Digana. I'm here. I'm your Mr. Anava. I'm Mr. Humility, which is the exact opposite of humility. Amarle Rav Nachman the Tana, and Rav Nachman also said, don't say there's no more fear of sin. There's me. What? This is the same ring of what Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, what Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, right? Like, what the heck? So let's look at what this comment here. There is a commentary called Yachin. Let me tell you where that comes from. It's a Mishnah Yachinu Boaz. I actually got it from my bar mitzvah. Printed, I don't remember how many years ago this came out, but many years ago. And it's called Yachinu Boaz for a reason. For those of you who have a really good memory, you will remember when we learned Sefer Melachim in Parak Zion, I think it was, Sefer Melachim Aleph, where it has all the details, all the architectural details of the Beit HaMikdash. It said there were two pillars at the beginning, at the entrance of the Beit HaMikdash. If you have a Gemara at home, most Talmud Bavli has imprinted on the cover or when you open it up, like these two pillars that represent the entrance to the Beit HaMikdash. One was called, Shlomo Melech gave them names, Yachin and Boaz. And we talked about back then why. So one of the commentaries on Mishnah is Yachin and Boaz. So this is the commentary of Yachin. So he says like this, so one person said, don't say there's no more humility. I'm the most humble person, humble person that there is. And I know I told you a story when we were learning the Sharim, and I would tell it again for those who are not there. 100% true story. I knew a guy who really thought a lot of himself. I mean, he really thought he was the best thing since sliced bread. And I talked to him, and one day he said to me, and he was 100% serious, if I could only be a little more humble, I'd be the most humble man on earth. And I said to him, are you serious? Do you hear what you're even saying? He said, yeah, I know what I'm saying. So this is what this sounds like. Don't say there's no more humility. I'm humble. Don't think for a second, God forbid, Rav Yosef or Rav Nachman are coming to brag and talk about how good they are. El Dechashu. By the way, I think this answer is very similar to what I said. I'll explain to you afterwards if I'm right. El Dechashu, they were worried, they were concerned. It is. Oh, I didn't even realize. I didn't tell you what my answer was. And now I realize this is the almost exact same thing. Huh. Yay. Okay, good. I got something right, fine. If for some reason students heard this, oh, there's no more anava, there's no more humility, oh, there's no more yirat chait, there's no more fear of sin, then what would happen? It'd be like opening the mouth. What does that mean? It'd be like they have an opening here, which is they would also say, you know what, it's not even worth working towards being humble. It's not even worth trying to be a yirat chait. Gemara says, there's no more yirat. Oh, it was Mishne, sorry. Mishne. The Mishne said, there's no more yirat chait. Because of that fear, that Rab Nachman and Rab Yosef were forced to make that declaration, that they were still humble, and the other one said, I have Yirat Chet. And their intention was pure. Sorry, Nikuda, period. Amakom bechasadav, Hashem in his chesed, Yizakenu, He should grant us that all of our actions should be directed to God in the right way, with right intention. So the truth is, I didn't say what my opinion was, but this is exactly what I was saying for years. I saw this, I cut and pasted it, put it in here, and I just now realized that this is what I said. So there's an expression, Baruch Shekivanti, which literally means blessed is he that I was able to have the same intention as somebody else. So, Baruch Hashem. Okay. So let me just see something here. Yeah. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the next Mishne and translate, and we're going to stop because I'm starting to lose the voice and I need it today for a little more. So let me just, this is some of your printings. This is going to be part of the same Mishnah. In others, it's the next Mishnah. So I'm going to read it to you. This is a list of things you shouldn't do. There's a lot to say in this Mishnah, which is why it's another reason to defer to the next class, Bezrat Hashem. It says as follows, Hillel Omer, and this is, by the way, also one of those that's become fairly famous. Al tifrosh min hatzibur, do not separate yourself from the community. Al ta'amin ba'atzmecha yomotecha, don't trust yourself, don't trust yourself to the day you die. Sounds very negative. I'm going to give one comment on each when I go back before we stop. Al ta'din et chavercha ad shetagia limkomo. Don't judge your friend until you're in his place. Al tomar davar she'efshar lishmoa. Don't say something that's not understandable, that you just assume someone will understand. Al tomar lich she'efneh. Here he says, I've seen it two ways. It's a play on words. Don't say that when I have the time, I'll learn. Maybe you're not going to have that time. So one comment on each one, or maybe question that I'll leave you. To what extent are we saying, don't separate yourself from the community? Exactly how does that work? Right? How does that work that you don't separate yourself? Does it mean you don't be a hermit? Or does it have a much broader meaning? Secondly, don't trust yourself the day you die. Sounds very negative. What about self-esteem? Like I feel for myself, I hope I bring some good to this world. I hope I'm a good husband, a good father, a good grandfather. What, I shouldn't believe in myself. It sounds so negative. Next, don't judge somebody until you're in their place. Sounds like, so once you're in their place, you're allowed to judge somebody. We also know another statement. You should judge someone favorably, but you just said don't judge someone. How does that work? Don't say something that you expect will be understood, or say something that's not clear, just expecting someone to understand you. And finally, don't ever say, when I have free time, I'll learn. Maybe you won't have that time. This, by the way, is a line that I heard years ago. Now it's accepted almost universally. But when my generation, my age, was finishing high school, and guys were going to learn in yeshiva, and girls were going to Ulpana or some other seminar in Israel, it wasn't yet that accepted. It was somewhat of a fight, in quotes, for some families. And for sure, coming back a second year was very unusual back then. I had a little bit of a disagreement with my parents. I ended up coming back a second year for part of the second year. But one of the lines that's used for students and parents at that time period in life, what we call the gap year nowadays, is don't say when I have the time I'll learn. Maybe you won't have the time. Tachlis, from the time person starts university till the day they retire, they generally, under normal circumstances, will never have that opportunity to take a year or more and sit and learn. Never. Again, I'm not talking about someone goes to Hesder. So not a guy or girl who's going to go into the working world, have children, bring a family, go to work. They'll learn. But to have that opportunity, almost once in a lifetime until a person retires. And even then, people don't necessarily take the proper advantage of the time. But that's on the grand scale. On the microcosmic scale, it also means on a daily basis. You come home, you're tired. Oh, I forgot to do my daf. Oh, I didn't do my Parshat Shavua. Oh, I didn't do my Mishnah Yomit, or whatever it might be that you may do on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. And when I have a little more time later today, I'll do it. It's never going to get done. Klal Gadol, general rule. If you say you're going to push something off, it's going to get pushed off. You're not going to catch up. These are the questions and topics we'll talk about B'ezrat Hashem next week, because between now and our next class in Pirke Avot will be after Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut. I will tell you that it's going to be a very unusual Yom HaZikaron this year, and probably also very unusual Yom HaAtzmaut. But the way you relate to each day should be proper. You don't have to tone down completely your Yom HaAtzmaut. The enemy wins. And Yom HaZikaron, you'll deal with how you have to deal with in any way, shape, or form. Have a good day. Shir B'Sorot Tovot. One final comment I should mention, put on a different hat for a second. For those of you who are not aware, or you were and you forgot, tonight at 5:30 in the Sharagai in the Robin Forest, ACI is hosting a memorial and the revelation of 77 more names on the memorial wall for all those who've fallen in this war, terror attacks. The wall of memory represents has the names of all those from to the early 20s, even of names of Americans and Canadians or relatives of who have died in service country, also those who were killed in terror attacks, also related. And there'll be a ceremony tonight, 5:30 to 6:30. If you want any more information, please let me know. Have a good day, everybody.